Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new Wellspring podcast, The Well, where we're going to be diving in with experts around the church, talking about several different topics. We might talk with Justin Amos about mental health. We might talk with Matt Robertson about art and creativity. But today, we're talking with Dave Hind about bringing media into the church and what that's looked like for Wellspring. We picked Dave because he was a founder of the church, and he also works closely with students through College Young Life. So he has a great eye for what engages them, and he's always looking for better ways to improve Wellspring. So thank you guys for tuning in, and let's get into it. Hello, Wellspring. Welcome to the Well podcast. I am one of your media interns, Matt O'Callahan, and today we are going to be talking with local legend, Genesis Hooper, College Young Life leader, Heavy. And we're going to be talking about bringing media into the church. Heavy, would you mind introducing yourself more and telling us about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Dave Hind, known to these guys as Heavy D. So just a guy that gets buckets at Genesis, I guess. I don't know.
Hey.
No, so yeah, I'm a financial advisor in town, and my wife and I volunteer with College Young Life, and I have a heart to see young people come to know Jesus, follow Jesus, make an impact on their community and the world. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, I guess. I got 2 kids. And yeah, there you go. I don't know.
And a dog. Twiggy.
And a dog, yeah.
Twiggy, gotta get our Twiggy shout out.
Absolutely.
What kind of inspired you to push for more media in Wellspring?
Yeah, I think it's just the idea of young people feeling comfortable at church. It's the idea of kind of inspiring young people, a place in an atmosphere where they feel connected and kind of catered to in a sense. And so it was all of that kind of stuff that I just feel like we needed to grow in at Wellspring. And so those are some of the things that kind of inspired just the beginning of getting more media, video, different sound, and stuff on social media. Nice.
Yeah. Do you think like social media is a good thing that like our church should be engaging in?
Yeah, I think that's interesting right now because, social media is kind of one of those things that young people almost become addicted to, right? I mean, I think it's one of those things that cause anxiety for young folks. So I think it's an interesting kind of a question, like, should the church be engaged in social media when really probably, if we're honest, we need to be on social media less. Mm-hmm. But the reality is young people are on social media. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. So I think that we need to be involved with social media as a church. And it's not like social media is necessarily good or bad, right? It just depends on context. A lot of things in our life and our world depend on context. And social media is one of those things, like it can be a positive thing, right? It can connect people. It can get information out there. There can be inspiring things on social media. And so, like if you were filming a baptism service or something like that, like you experience it, but maybe it gives you a chance to go back and watch it and experience it again. That can be a positive thing. So a lot of things in our Christian walk and our Christian life kind of depend on context. And I feel like in the right context, really we should be engaged in social media.
Yeah, I can definitely agree because like we've made some posts for social media recently, like on Instagram and TikTok, and like they've gotten great feedback. Like it's just clips of sermons and whatnot, and I think it brings kind of like a light to people's feed. Like just instead of seeing everybody else's highlight life of just all the positives like that you see in people's lives, I mean, then you get this like kind of reconnection to God and God's word.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up this verse. Trying to pull up this verse. So Matt and I are going to be sliding this mic back and forth because this is our first episode, so we're going to get better at setup and everything, quality as time goes on. But Yeah, I mean, social media is very important, church leaders, because without it, I wouldn't have a job. Wouldn't be able to provide for my wife because I'm the media director here at Wellspring. Yes, and my cat, Zeke, he needs a lot of cat food. But yeah, like one thing I always tell people, there's a verse that says Romans 11:36, I think. Yeah, this is the right one. It's in a little different version. Okay, but basically it says all things are from God, for God, and through God. So people kind of make social media the bad guy a lot when it's like really like God created everything. Like he just the fact that like someone had this idea to connect people when they're like not physically present, like that's a cool idea, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to hang out with your friends even when they're away.
Right.
So like if all things are for God, from God, and through God, like how can we use it to glorify God? Because like social media isn't the bad thing, even though it can be used for bad things. A real bad thing is our hearts, because we want to use social media for bad things, you know, or it can go that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or whatever. So that's what I tell people in just like a lot of things, because like I'm a media director now, but like before I started working, I didn't have social media on my phone for 5 years because it is like super tempting. Like I was a new Christian, like there was so much like sexual temptation, and I was just like filling my time, you know, but I didn't really know who I was. So like I wasn't doing myself a favor just by filling my time mindlessly. But yeah, I mean, like after some maturity and accountability and stuff, and like now I'm seeing all these amazing ways that it can be used. Like I'm documenting Wellspring, our church's like history, so that we don't forget like these important moments. And it's fun to look back, and it can also encourage people in the church that are doing cool things, like if we're cheering them on through social media. So yeah, that's a verse that I go back to a lot. All things are for God, from God, through God, and might be a little bit off, but that's basically it.
No, I think,
you know?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And social media is like everything else. It's like we need to have a healthy relationship with that thing, right? It's like food. Do we have a healthy relationship with that?
Yeah.
You know, all of that. There's many things in our life. It's like, you know, and if we don't, then that's probably something we need to look at on our insides and like, hey, what's going on there? So, I mean, there's times when it's like, I'm going to delete this app for a while. You know, if I'm find myself, I'm just scrolling through Facebook. I know Facebook isn't a young person's thing, but there's times when I'm like, I'm just going to delete this app from my phone for a while. I feel like I'm spending too much time just kind of mindlessly looking at this. And even at work, a lot of times, like, I'll get into work and I'll just put my phone kind of on the other side of the room because it's like I just need a break from this. I don't want to be distracted. So I think there's those parts of our lives when we need to have a healthy relationship with things like that, with social media. But that should not stop us from using that to glorify God, to to spread the good news of who Jesus is, right? For sure. And inspiring people. I think it's all about.
I saw a post or something from like a Christian artist or something. Very descriptive, I know, but it said
very vague.
It said something along the lines of like, we as Christians like have the coolest story to tell. Like literally, like there's no story cooler than like God becoming man, like just loving the people he was around, dying for us, and like he like gives us his spirit now until like we come home to heaven. Like that's the coolest story ever, right?
Right.
So it's like, why are so many like people who aren't believers like better at like storytelling, whether that be through music, through art, through social media? Basically like how, like why, if we have the coolest story to tell and like the most powerful God out there, it's like, why aren't we like creating some of the dopest art that the world has ever seen?
Great question, right? It's the most compelling story ever, I think, and Jesus is such a compelling
that's a great
character,
word.
and we're not doing it well. So
yeah, man. So just random thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought.
So that's a little bit on media in the church in general. Now let's kind of dive into media in Wellspring.
Yeah.
So the reason we have Dave on is because he is a visionary, entrepreneur. What else? Basically, real life Tony Stark. I think I've seen a super suit.
The poor man's Tony Stark. Yeah. Let's say that. The very, very poor man's Tony Stark.
But no, he leads college young life, so he's around college kids all the time. Again, like he's obviously got a heart for them. And it feels whenever me and you go out for lunch, Dave, like you're always telling me this new idea that you had. Or like this commercial. Oh, Dave is so big on commercials. He's like, dude, I saw this commercial.
That's where I get inspired. What can I say? They're creative. They're fun. They're creative, right?
Yes. So I literally asked him, I was like, Dave, why do you like commercials so freaking much? And he was like, I don't know, man. But so he's always looking out for commercials. He's always looking out for new ways that we can keep things engaging, right? So when it came to Wellspring, he was one of the driving forces kind of in change. 5 years, even maybe before that, a lot of churches were making changes, just kind of integrating new technology and stuff. But we kind of just stayed stagnant for a while.
Yeah, we were falling behind a little bit, I think. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so you set a meeting up with all the staff and board and some other people that just kind of had an eye for art,
right?
In general,
yeah.
That was back in like 2020 before we had
right.
Made all
that
these changes.
That was early 2020 before.
Yeah, I think that was like August 2020 or something.
I can't remember. No, it was like I think it was right after the first of the year because it was right before. I think it was before.
It was
COVID.
It was
yeah, it was pre-COVID. Like maybe January, like right after the first of the year.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of remember that because I remember in December having sleepless nights, literally praying about just this whole idea of where we were as a church with media and social media and just being creative, all of that kind of stuff. Because I remember having sleepless nights in December, and then luckily, and the church leadership at Wellspring, so great. I mean, just to be able to kind of really pray about some stuff, and I went to a few of the folks and just said, hey, I've been thinking about this, praying about this, can't quite get it out of my mind. I feel like God's kind of doing something here. And so, yeah, but that meeting was late January, early February, kind of right before all heck broke loose with COVID.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. So with any new idea, good or bad, you're going to get some pushback, just because it's easy to get into a routine. So yeah, like kind of the room was kind of split. Like some people were immediately on board with the stuff that Dave wanted to integrate. Some people were a little bit hesitant, kind of rightfully so, because like we were talking about earlier, like you can use social media for good, you can use technology for bad, it just kind of depends like whose hands it's in and where their hearts are at. But you gave a great example of like the reasoning behind this stuff. And I just wanted you to talk about that a little bit more to kind of give maybe people that, I don't know, are new to Wellspring or don't completely know why, just to kind of give them some insight on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great thought. I remember just kind of thinking of it like this. Well, one is, I guess I'll go back. I understand how, people could be a little bit leery of kind of this push towards media and videos and stuff, like, just because you don't want to, like, the temptation is like, are we going to start concentrating on this more than Jesus, or are we going to start relying on this more than just personal relationships with people and investing in people? Like, which I mean, that's a great warning, right? For sure. And so I'd appreciated kind of those, hey, want to make sure that we're not thinking this is taking the place of just life on life discipleship. And that was never the intent, but I totally understood that. But yes, I guess thinking of it this way, like, if you had a friend and your friend was in a rough marriage, let's say it was a guy and he and his wife were really having a hard time, and this friend of yours, it was he was pretty desperate, right? Things were not looking good. And maybe you set up an appointment with maybe a Christian counselor, and so you're like hoping that maybe your friend can get his wife to come to this, to meeting with this Christian counselor. And so, but the Christian counselor takes a little bit of time and says, well, tell me about your wife. What is she like? She likes Adele. I don't know. Just throw that out there. She likes chocolate chip cookies. She likes Adele. She likes whatever, And so your friend's like pretty desperate and like praying that he can get his wife to this marriage counselor because things aren't looking good. And things feel kind of lost, feel kind of desperate, feeling like really they want this to work. So you show up at the counselor's house, and there's maybe some Adele playing in the background. There's some chocolate chip cookies on the table. This counselor is asking you some questions about you and the wife. And so he kind of has an idea of what you guys are like. And there's this idea of maybe your friend was like, I hope this isn't an immediate disconnect from my wife. Like you're just hoping that maybe this atmosphere is something that will bring about some honesty, some intimacy, and some movement towards healing and wholeness in your marriage. And you walk into this place and this person has taken the time and, hey, they give a dang about my wife and I and us feeling comfortable as we walk in. They don't want this to be an immediate disconnect for us. And so they've set up an atmosphere to where this can be, an atmosphere where there can be some connecting and they've got a chance, right, to hear about Jesus and hear about the kind of healing power and reconciliation that Jesus offers. I think that's what it can be when people bring their friends to church, right? And I know with College Young Life, and you're a College Young Life leader too, we invite our friends to come to church. Maybe they're not Christians. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they're desperate, right? Maybe you're just kind of hoping beyond hope that this church experience isn't like maybe an immediate disconnect. You're hoping that they come and they feel at home. You're hoping that there's an atmosphere that allows them to hear about Jesus and begin to get the healing and redemption that Jesus offers. I think that's my idea behind social media and, well, not just social media, but just media and just the video, the kind of music that we play at, when people walk in, the atmosphere that we set up, is it conducive for young people to come and it's not an immediate disconnect, I guess, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did I say that right? I know we talked about that before. Okay.
That was good. No, I literally,
that was kind of a long story, but
thought of something new. So it's basically you're using like technology as like a form of like hospitality.
Yeah. There you go.
Because you're like, yeah, you're not, I don't know, you're just making them feel at home, like you said.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is familiar. You know? So that's cool. That's another thing we're working on as a church. So maybe we've just been working on it for 2 or 3 years now.
Right.
Who knows, but
I think it's a part of a hospitality.
Yeah.
It's, the idea of, I love inviting my college friends to Wellspring because I know they're going to feel welcome, right? And I know it's going to look familiar with video stuff. It's going to sound familiar with the kind of music that is playing as they get there. There's going to be friendly faces, obviously. There's going to be, again, none of this takes the place of just life-on-life stuff. But
but if it can add to it.
It can add to it. And it's not an immediate disconnect when you walk in, so that we can... Yeah. Anyway.
That was like when I was growing up, I was always scared to invite my friends to church because my church's demographic was like pretty much like 45, 50 and up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a Baptist church, which is fine, but they just ended up singing kind of like older, more traditional songs.
Yeah.
Which again, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of the whole like vibe wasn't like too modernized because it's not what they focused on, which is fine because they were doing great things in other areas. But yeah, it can definitely be used to enrich. So my question to you, Heavy, is if you're the person in your story and you're going in to the counselor's house, what music is he putting on in the background for you? Is it a little Nick D, little MGK maybe? I don't know.
Maybe a little Chance. I don't know. It's hard to say. Khalid, stuff like that. I don't know. That's it's kind of my vibe.
Most streamed artists of the year, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. So
cool. We just hit 21 minutes, so we can
keep rolling. See what happens.
Hitting our groove, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Something that you said, Jack, just kind of like your history in church. Kind of like growing up in the Baptist church. I grew up in the Catholic church, and like there's like no media. Like they play like the organ and like that's like the only instrument, like or like the flute or whatnot, and like you're more just like classical like instruments. And, like there's like no technology like, on stage or whatnot, and like there's definitely no like projectors or even wouldn't even think of like a media team. But one of one of Wellspring's statement like goals is creating a new normal for the next generation, and like media is definitely not going away anytime soon. So like I definitely agree with that hospitality sense of just like we got to make this place hospitable for the next generations, and like if media's not going anywhere, that's going to be a part of the next generation. So like what better way to engage them and keep them coming to church than bringing media into it and like singing like more relevant songs that we because man, we've been singing a lot of Chris Renzema, and I dig it a lot.
Absolutely.
Shout out Kenny, man.
Yes.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the very first episode of The Well. Hopefully you got to get some insight about bringing media into the church and got to know Dave a little bit better. He just speaks such a great word, so we had to split this one up into 2 parts. So be on the lookout for part 2. It will be coming out shortly.